It's all according to plan.
Take this and come with me, King.
All right, it's true. President Trump needs you to go celebrate total patriot victory right now at johndoyleshop.com. Everybody wants to be a patriot until it's time to spend money on alarmingly far-right clothing on the internet. So do that. But as we said in the last video, we had to do our separate video on this, the myth of merit-based immigration, debunking the H1B visa scam, promises made, promises kept, all these things which seek, of course, to attack patriots. So essentially, over Christmas break, Donald Trump appointed a vocal proponent of the H1B visa program to advise him on AI policy. This Indian guy who came over to America on a visa with Microsoft in 2007, the year of Spider-Man 3, of course. And people were understandably pretty upset about this, and that caused other people, mainly like tech bros, who gravitated towards Trump increasingly so over the course of the last decade, but especially in 2024, to come out not only to defend the fellow tech bro, but also to post a lot of, we'll say, provocative tweets about Americans, American culture, and the need for these H1B immigrants because of these deficiencies in American culture, deficiencies in Americans themselves. These are people like Vivek Ramaswamy, David Sachs, all these guys in the orbit, and we welcome the support of anybody who wants to throw their weight behind what we're already doing, but we have to recognize that these claims that Americans are lazy, we require this merit-based immigration for success, that's deeply flawed at best. Sinister at worst. Like we said in the last video, you can't simultaneously believe in American exceptionalism, that America is the best country in the world with the best people in the world, and believe that we just need immigration. We can't quite do it by ourselves, suggesting, of course, that Americans by themselves are not actually that great. We didn't invent and build the modern world. We can't undertake national projects of world historical scales, and all these other groups can, and so we have to bring them in. I mean, that's obviously ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying we have to be totally anti-immigration, like, for example, if we let in 1,000 of the smartest, most qualified, most experienced people each year, people of extraordinarily high talent, I'm not going to be that upset about that. I understand that talent exists everywhere, okay? We already have a program for that, though. The O1 visa program, which is meant for the extraordinarily talented people. The problem is we have the H1B visa program, and it's sold to us as though that's what it's doing. It's allowing for these extraordinarily talented people to come into the country and fill this talent vacuum that we have in America because we just can't quite get it together. But of course, that's not true. It exists simply as a program to displace American workers for the benefit of large, often trans or multinational corporations and the political left. And it seems to me that if you were really concerned about a lack of talent, you would simply remove the shackles which have been imposed upon patriots, upon American excellence in the last several decades, so that we can return to interstate highway projects and manned space flights instead of crumbling infrastructure and routine delays for domestic air travel, things of that nature. But of course, they don't actually want to solve the problem. They just want to displace its targets further. So that's the general problem. The phrase merit-based immigration, the surrounding discussion imply two things. Firstly, these people have merit, and secondly, that we are in desperate need of that merit. Neither of those things are actually true. Not only is the merit that they have exaggerated, that's putting it nicely, we have no real shortage of merit in this country. I mean, among Americans, and any shortage that we do have in America is artificial. It was created by the government as a part of the civil rights regime. Reminder, by the way, before we continue, all net job growth in the wake of COVID has gone to immigrants. It's literally been years since any jobs were created on net for Americans. Just keep that in mind as we go forward discussing how these people were demanding the importation of foreign labor. It may sort of inform your understanding of the dynamics here a bit. So firstly, I want to go through a thread that somebody put together with a lot of general information about how the program actually works in practice, and then we'll get into a little bit more of the fun stuff that both debunks the idea that these places are producing any merit and emphasizes that we have plenty of merit here, plenty of merit to go around in America that we're producing, and we're deliberately ignoring it for no reason other than to displace Americans. I mean, that's the reason the system exists. It provides a financial incentive to businesses to displace Americans because that's what they want to happen. So they reward the businesses by providing for them that incentive to do so. Because they hate you. That's the ultimate reason this is happening. They literally just hate you. You ever hear that phrase, the purpose of a system is what it does? Ironically, I think it originates from tech. Basically to say there's no reason to keep claiming that the purpose of a system is something that it consistently fails to do. So if there's a system in place and it's consistently producing a certain result and that system remains in place and that result remains being produced, consider that the actual purpose of the system is to do that. Or you can just ignore your eyes and believe the words they say to you, which contradict your eyes. Well, no, the purpose of the system is not what keeps happening. It's actually this other thing which is not happening and which has never happened. Okay, so the system on paper is supposed to bring in high-skilled workers to meet demand that we have for them domestically because we're so stupid. That's the nominal purpose. But what it actually does, what we see occur, is just that it simply displaces American workers who are otherwise capable with cheap foreign labor. Therefore, that is the purpose of the system. And of course, most displaced American workers are white. Virtually all of the foreign labor is non-white. And if the roles were reversed, I know they never are, but indulge me, where all the people who are losing their jobs are non-white, all the people who are getting hired are white, there would be immediate federal investigation into this program, lawsuits. It would be shut down overnight. I mean, you wouldn't even believe it. Boom, you're dead. Death penalty. Bye-bye. It's over. Let's go through the thread. The penalty would be death. All right, so we've got the H1B data mega thread. Guy says, I downloaded 5 years of H1B data from the U.S. Department of Labor website, 4 million plus records, and spent the day crunching data. I went into this with an open mind, but to be honest, I'm now extremely skeptical of how this program works. Here's what I found. So we have charts showing hundreds of thousands, easily over 500,000 applications every year, consistently approaching closer to 1 million applications every year. Breakdown of how much these people are being paid. Again, if you're talking about top talent that we just don't have in America because we're dumb, you're dumb. It's over. You're not looking at primarily like middle-class salary range, which again, I mean, adjusted for inflation is pretty much what you're seeing with everything in this chart. You would need to see more of the greater than 250,000 for that top talent, which we don't have here. So we have to pay them. We have to, these poor people, we have to pay them so much money to come to America. Sorry, please leave your home country behind, to which you are so obviously loyal. We don't have merit here, so we're going to pay you $250,000, $250,000 big American dollars if you come and do the job over here. But you're not seeing that. I mean, that's less than 3% of these for fiscal year every year, after COVID. The vast majority, like literally 9 out of 10 of these are middle class or lower class. No, it's all, yeah, because it bottoms at like 75K, lower than 75. So yeah, this is just to displace the middle class. Certified applications by job category. Yeah, it's all like STEM stuff. Wage data is similar. Before I start, one note, all charts in this thread are for applications that were certified, in other words, approved for entry into the H1B visa lottery. I filtered out applications the government rejected. Imagine what those look like. All numbers here are therefore, a lot of those are fraudulent. They know literally a majority of them are fraudulent, which we'll discuss. All numbers here are therefore for visa employers and visas employers actually and realistically attempted to obtain. To start with this program is massively popular with employers. The program has a statutory limit of 85,000 visas per year, but employees routinely receive approval for more than 800,000 applications per year. 868,000 or 10 times the limit just in 2024. Yeah, big problem. It can't happen. So there's that graph we saw earlier with the applications total. Contrary to what I expected, the average salary for the H1B is relatively low, slightly under 120K this year. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're talking about middle class salaries, which I know that might be weird to your ear to hear that like 120 grand a year is like middle class, but it is. I mean, I just tweeted about this the other day. The popularizing of the 6-figure income benchmark began really in the 1980s, became very popular, and then it kind of continued in the 90s and 2000s. Like, oh, I'm making 6 figures. If you have $100,000 today, you have $100,000. But if you had that same 100,000 US dollars and you went back to 1980 when that figure became popular, you've got north of $400,000. So you're talking about what sustains a middle class income, a family of 4. To the extent that exists anymore, the nuclear family, I mean, yeah, this is middle class salary range that is being displaced. Given that much of the H-1B debate pertains to tech workers, I incorrectly assume the average would be higher, but that's the beauty of data, right? Yes, but it was also because there's so much rhetoric around the issue that says that it's about this, very high talent that we just don't have here. We don't have hundreds of thousands of capable STEM workers here who can't find jobs. Almost all the prominent job categories are tech-related, software developer roles, blah, blah, blah. There's some more stuff about application data. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You look at which companies are importing the most of these laborers, and as it turns out, these are all Indian companies that import H-1B tech workers in mass. It's sort of interesting how that works out, isn't it? So you have Cognizant, which is 93,000, Infosystems, which is 61,000, Tata Consultancy Services, 60,000. Do you understand the problem there? Like these other names are Cognizant, that's English. Infosystems, that's English. Tata Consult. Like, do you understand the problem there? These are all other English words, and we have this Indian company called Tata. Or is it like Tata? like Tata, like goodbye, Tata middle class. All right, so Tata Consultancy. Oh no. Tata Consultancy Services, 60,000 and so on and so forth. These aren't American companies that needed international talent to fill critical roles. They're foreign companies that appear to have been founded to place overseas tech workers into U.S. companies as contractors. Cognizant, Infosystems, Wipro, HCL Tech, and of course our friends over at Tata Consultancy Services. What jobs are these companies seeking visas for? A metric. Oh no. I'm like Rick. I'm like Rick in that show Walking Dead when he finds out that Carl had to just kill his own mom. A metric ton of IT. I'm just like, oh no. The author's a Redditor. Are you kidding? This guy was on our side. He was a patriot. I don't even want to keep reading. Okay, requesting visas, more data. I'll link the thread. I'll show you where you can find it. To summarize the end of it, you can see where I'm going with this. A casual perusal of the data shows that this isn't a program for the top 0.1% of talent as it's been described. This is simply a way to recruit hundreds of thousands of relatively lower wage IT and financial services professionals. America needs to be a destination for the world's most elite talent, which I agree with in principle, but again, you're trusting evil people to enforce that. If you're talking about 1,000 people, and people are going to get mad, they're going to clip that and be like, John Doyle says he's pro-immigration. You're probably not. Okay, never mind. I'm the Anglo-Saxon. I can prove it empirically. We went over this in the last video. You are equatorial. That's your problem. Don't tell me I'm pro-immigration. So a casual perusal of the data has been described. Simply a way to recruit hundreds of thousands of relatively lower wage IT and financial service professionals. America needs to be a destination. We read that. H1B program isn't the way to do that. So true. I'm going to stop posting for now. Thank you. But let me know if there are any other visualizations you made. Thanks for reading. Okay, so thank you, Patriot. You did a fantastic job. Everybody talks about it. Everybody loves you. I don't understand what I am supposed to do in this situation. You've got all these companies, all these English names, then you throw me Tata Consulting. You're not you guys are not good communicators, man. The PR, talk about IT firm. You guys are PR firms. But I'm surprised that people are surprised that we've taken such a big issue with this program, or rather we've been so vocal with our opposition to it moving into the second Trump administration, because it's so obviously incompatible with everything this movement is about. I don't know what they expected was going to happen, genuinely. The program creates this dynamic that forces the mobility of capital and foreign workers to be prioritized over the mobility of, or even just well-being of the national workforce. That's a fundamental violation of the principles upon which our country was established, prioritizing the well-being and the mobility of the world over the American worker. It's a great betrayal, and it can't happen. That's why we won't compromise on this, because anytime you make a deal with the devil, you've already lost. The only way to win is by refusing to play. I'm not taking the trip to Georgia. I'm scared. We're not going to accept this. And I don't know what they thought was going to happen. And then too, to double down on it by just calling white Americans lazy, entitled idiots who have no merit. Okay, let's keep score. Let's go over some numbers since you wanted to be mean on the internet. Obviously, average IQ is important. India has an average IQ of around 75. Granted, they have 1.4 billion people. So even if their average IQ is 25 points lower than ours, they probably have more geniuses because they just have so many people, right? Well, that's the scary thing about this. It's not just the law of averages and numbers. The distributions of the curves are different, and their curves are steeper than ours, meaning they have a lower standard deviation value than we do concerning the distribution of intelligence across the population, meaning that they are concentrated more towards the average when compared to our concentration towards the average. So something like 3.6% of white Americans, and that's who we're talking about because, again, these are the people being overwhelmingly by design, displaced by these foreign workers. So something like 3.6% of white Americans have genius IQ. So if you have 5,000 white Americans, statistically about 180 of them would be geniuses, meaning when factoring for total population size, we have approximately 8 million white geniuses in this country. Not bad. We can work with that. Now compare this to the data from India. We see that 0.02% of Indians have genius IQs, meaning that if we had about 5,000 Indians, statistically, one of them would be a genius. Meaning when factoring for total population size, there'd be approximately 280,000 geniuses in all of India. And I know I'm American, so I'm bad at math, but I'm fairly confident that 8 million is greater than 280,000. Hey, I didn't want to do this. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to bring up the racist numbers, but you guys called me stupid on Twitter, and this is my defense mechanism. It keeps going, by the way. Did you know that India scored the second lowest in the world, 72nd out of 73 in PISA rankings, which is this like worldwide test of students' ability in math, science, and reading comprehension, and that they literally embarrassed themselves so spectacularly that the Indian government withdrew from future testing. Oh, but we have to deal with tweets that are going viral. People like, oh, our math is more difficult than yours in 7th grade. Okay, well, something like less than 40% of Indians even make it to high school. So I don't know, man, what do you want from me? Why are you making us do this to you? Why are you making so many unforced errors? Merit, need merit. Merit like when you outsource software development to India for $9 an hour and then your Boeing start falling from the sky. But I have to hear that Americans are just scared of competition. This is just DEI for white people. Buddy, you've literally never competed with us. Repeal the Civil Rights Act. Get the knife away from our throats. Let's see who goes the distance. You look at the performance of white American students on the PISA, it's among the highest in the world. Highest in the world. Again, talking about them since they're the core demographic and they're the ones being displaced intentionally by these programs, they have no merit. Okay, you see the same thing on computer information and literacy tests, reading literacy tests, mathematics, and science tests, literally everywhere you look. We dominate the world. We're way up. We're through the roof. And you would think that this talent, these obvious demonstrations of talent and merit would be nurtured and developed into something beautiful, into success. No, instead we gatekeep them and we suffocate them and give opportunities to everybody less qualified, both domestic and of course abroad through importation. Yeah, me when I discriminate against white people at every level from school to the workforce. Get owned. Where's your merit? Where's your merit, buddy? No, you actually. Where's your merit? I counter that. I don't sit. Is it in the room with us? Like, what is it about your merit that we don't have already? Why do we need it so badly? Why are we starving for it? Again, you want to talk about people coming to this country who are genuinely brilliant? We already have a program for that, the O1 visa program. And those people aren't in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands. They're much harder to come by because brilliance is obviously rare. It's the nobility in it. And we already have a ton of that in this country, probably most of it. American STEM graduates already can't find work. And when they can find work, they are paid less than what they should be, despite the fact that they are objectively better in terms of performance, as the data has consistently shown, and it's because of these programs which Donald Trump was elected to stop. H1B doesn't give you those people. It doesn't give you that like 1 in a million type person who's genuinely brilliant. It's not even designed to do that. The program is designed to replace the middle class. That is what it does. But its biggest advocates claim that, oh, it's bringing in brilliant people because they're liars and they're schemers. Everything they say about this issue concerning their quality is a lie. Everything they say about this issue concerning our lack of quality is a lie. Yet they screech and they cry and they freak, they attack you if you point out the fact that they're lying. And I don't know if you've ever tried to do business with these people in other parts of the world. You find out very quickly, honesty is not a universal virtue. I know the schemers when I see them, and they're scammers. You want to call us lazy and incompetent? You want to lie? Okay, I'll tell the truth and say that you're dishonest hacks. You're swindlers. You don't make value-added products. You scam or you iterate. You think it's smart to scam people. You don't feel good about a deal unless you're screwing somebody over. We don't like that in this part of the world. It's unbecoming. These people are incredibly neurotic. They're ethno-narcissists. They possess an anger towards you that you could never comprehend simply because you as an American get to be epic and have fun and like stumble into success naturally anyway because you're just built different. I tweeted this out. It's true. There are billions of people who hate you because you can enjoy milk, communicate with animals, drive Corvettes, and make blonde women laugh. That's all this is. They're mad at American culture and they lie about it because they'll never quite get it the way that you do. You stumbled right into it, and they hate that. Americans are too focused on sports. They don't meme themselves into doing math for 12 hours a day like we do. I know, it must suck to have to do that all day and still not score anywhere near us. Neil Armstrong, of course, a product of American culture, one of the greatest Americans ever, better than literally any person most of these other countries have ever produced at any point. He chose the less academic, less elite, and meritocratic Purdue over MIT simply because he liked the football team at Purdue. You simply don't get it. We're lazy. Source? I have sources. I looked at the data. It says we're harder workers. We're on welfare less. When we're at work, we spend more time actually working. Hispanic men spend the least time. White men spend the most time. Asian men are third after white women, but still the gaps are large. White men are first. The closest group is then white women. So if you're looking at 40 hours a week, who's actually spending the closest to 40 hours during that week working? It's white men, white women, Asian men, so on and so forth. Hispanic men being last is funny because people have this idea in their heads that Hispanics are like the hardest workers because they always see them on construction sites or something. But a trained eye will see also the 6-packs of Corona, things like that. You go get gas, you go get a pack of cigarettes or something at 7-Eleven anytime between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. They'll be there. They'll be in there with the vests on, and they'll be getting their 6-packs and everything. And we love that. We love Hispanics. We love taco bowls. We love street tacos. We love windows that aren't equidistant. We love all of that. It's a rich and vibrant culture. Keep it up. Muy bien. But yeah, there's a great article that summarizes the whole problem. It says, a new study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America counters the persistent myth that the United States is falling behind in STEM. The study looked at the skills of computer programmer graduates around the world by using a standardized programming test. The study strikes several blows to the great American STEM shortage myth. Blow number 1 to the STEM myth. The study found that, quote, seniors in the United States exhibit much higher levels of computer science skills than seniors in China, India, and Russia. Blow number 2 to the STEM myth. Although seniors in elite programs score much higher than seniors in non-elite programs in China, India, and Russia, they still score lower than seniors in the United States. Blow number 3 to the STEM myth. U.S. computer science seniors from elite schools greatly outperform computer science seniors from elite schools in the foreign countries. And blow number 4 to the STEM myth. The substantial advantage of computer science students in the United States is not driven by the presence of international students. And number 4 is important because you could use that to write off the other 3. You could say, well, the other 3 may be true, but it's only because you have this presence of international students because you guys are dumb and you have to bring in international students because you're an idea in an economic zone, and so we come and we do all the heavy lifting for you. Turns out that's not actually true, libtard. We proved it empirically. The substantial advantage of computer science students in the United States is not driven by the presence of international students. BTF you lose, we win, way up. Collectively, foreign computer programmers do not bring higher skills to America. They simply bring cheap labor. Again, incentivized by the government, which hates its own people. So they reward these businesses by providing a financial incentive to them to displace the native stock, being patriots. And one of the problems is that Americans just don't understand that they need to go to undertac.com and give their money to our cool friends and get some cool underwear and some cool socks and some cool hoodies and some cool sweatpants. It's getting cold out. You don't need warm clothes. You're not a man of the North. Are you of the equator? Are you here on H1B? Don't make me have to call President Trump. They're battle-tested, higher quality materials, and you've ever even heard of. They're literally our boys. I mean, like, what else do you need? What personal qualifier do you need to meet your standard? Tell me. I want to know. The basic political distinction to which all action can be reduced to is that between the undertac customer and the undertac non-customer. That's how I view the world on that axiom. So maybe try being on the right side for once. But the other problem that Americans don't take into account is simply how many people are entering legally into this country every year. The answer is, of course, upwards of 1 million every year. And when you look at the polling that asks Americans what their ideal number of legal immigrants would be, only like 19% say they want it that high. The majority actually said that they would want it to be less than half of that. And this has been true for decades. Americans have consistently supported reducing immigration levels, whether you're looking at polling from the 1970s, just a few years after Hart-Celler opened up the borders, of course, or in the years leading up to the Trump 2016 campaign. And we hear so much about this national identity crisis, even from guys who, support continuing or even accelerating these immigration policies. And I wonder if this national identity crisis has anything to do with the fact that we have the greatest number of foreign-born people right now in our country ever, when factoring for all the illegals, and the highest overall proportion too, like as a percentage, or at least it's as high as it's ever been. It's tough to define exactly what your family is at Thanksgiving dinner if you have a bunch of people you don't recognize sitting at the table saying they have just as much of a claim to the food as you do, right? But maybe we have more in common than we think, A majority of Indians say that their foreign-born population is too high. I mean, imagine how we must feel, or don't you? I don't know. I'm not going to hold my breath. But to give you some context, on average, one Mexican immigrant brings in about 6.3 members of their family. Immigrants from China, India, the Philippines, they all follow a similar trend. And those groups together make up about 2/3 of all family-based immigration to the United States. That family-based immigration system, also known as chain migration, is responsible for roughly 2/3 of all legal immigration. So ending this is just as important as ending H1B, if not more. Of course, the H1B program destroys the middle class further, like it's already dying dying. It'll die without intervention. This is just the equivalent of like burying it alive, speeding that up a little bit instead of just leaving it to die. And the American middle class, historically, our base, that's the largest and only real threat to the global libtard menace. Like, that's why they destroy your history, your future, your wealth, your political power, your sanity, your quality of life, your mobility, everything. And they do the opposite with virtually every other group of people. But all of this together, the immigration consensus, with its blend of justification, all these concocted reasons for why this has to take place and continue forever, this has led to the largest peacetime demographic change in world history. That's not conjecture, that's not hyperbole, that is an actual statement of fact. The migration from all over the world into our country in just the last 60 years is literally without precedence in history. This wasn't supposed to happen. Certainly not to us. Certainly when you start to take into account our historic attitude towards immigration. People forget this. Immigration restriction is as American as apple pie. Native Americans, beware of foreign influence. There is a deep history of immigration skepticism throughout American history, even before the establishment of the country. The Massachusetts Bay Colony began to prohibit the entry of paupers in 1645, meaning people who were poor, people who would be a burden on the public. And in 1691, New York required you to do the same thing, basically, to assure that you would not be a burden on the public. And the reason that the federal government didn't get too involved in restricting immigration up until the late 19th century was because at the state level, each state could impose head taxes on immigrants, which would basically be a tax to help fund the needs of poor entrants. And in 1875, the Supreme Court invalidated those laws and immigration became more of a responsibility of the federal government. And following that, there were all kinds of laws to prohibit all kinds of different people from coming into the country, from prostitutes to political radicals to literally any person born in Asia. It's a whole thing. So nothing really changed in America other than the politics developed after the Second World War regarding immigration, which have retroactively distorted this country's historical attitudes towards immigration, which were rooted in assimilation because essentially you had to be from a similar culture, not broke, so you're unlikely to become a burden on the public, generally of the same politics and faith, which is the only recipe for assimilation to ever be successful at scale. How we view immigration now is an invention of mid-century libtardism, that we have to be some beacon for the rest of the world. So Donald Trump, the real conservative, is returning us to a better American age when he calls for the deportation of radicals, communists, foreigners, foreign drains on our society, because as you can see, the immigration we're getting now is a little bit different.
Hello, sorry, I had to teleport to go support Donald Trump. The coronation occurred. He's king of America. Again, you have nothing to worry about. I don't even really need to make this video anymore because every problem's already solved, but I'll indulge you and we'll finish what we started. The real crime would be not to finish what we started, right? We'll continue the monologue in the wonderful city of DC. So anyway, the immigrants we're getting now, a little bit different. I think we know that 60% of immigrants in America are receiving these family-based visas, which means that these immigrants are not required to have any special skills or talents. It's not merit-based, it's all family-based when they're receiving these visas. So you've got all these economically contributing immigrants, right? They're so epic. 20% of them are living in poverty. 57% of them are living near poverty. Both of those numbers are higher rates than the rates for Americans themselves. You're looking just at Mexicans, Hondurans, Guatemalans. All these immigrants have a poverty rate that is more than twice as high as the poverty rate for average people living in America, normal American households. You look at their households with children, more than twice as likely to be enrolled in welfare programs. Households without children still by majority are enrolled in welfare programs. But like any gaslighter, these people try to convince you to ignore rules with exceptions. They'll use a handful of outlying examples to convince you that the entire thing is good and it can replicate these results. And so we have to simply just keep bringing these people in because Elon Musk came in on the H1B visa program and Peter Thiel came in on the H1B visa program. And that Sergey Brin guy from Google, he came in on the H1B visa program. Okay, so 3 out of however many hundreds of thousands of people. By the way, that's not even true. They say Peter Thiel, born in Germany, by the way. His mother had American citizenship. Elon Musk, he was a student on a student visa. Sergey Brin, he was a refugee fleeing Soviet oppression, which is a little bit different than fleeing from, the natural state of your civilization. So it's like, okay, so we had this program since the 90s. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of tech workers are coming in. These skilled workers or whatever. Where are their Amazons? Where's Amazon 2? You may recall in 2014, some Indian guy wrote this article titled India's startup scene. Will VC dollars create the next Amazon? So that was 11 years ago to this day. Where's Amazon 2? Can you name Amazon 2? Can you name any company that's been started by these people in 11 years? None come to mind. I keep my ear pretty close to the ground with this stuff, but you can't really name a company started by someone who came over here on an H-1B visa. So are these people really innovators, or are they just self-promoters? Writing articles, and they're pontificating and making these false promises to justify, again, their ethnic interest at the expense of normal Americans. So are they innovators, or are they iterators? Sure, yeah, they've gained the top slots in many of these Fortune 500 companies. That's not nothing. But it's also just kind of taking the reins of what someone else built up from the ground. And by whom exactly? Who built that up from the ground? Who built those companies? Who are the founders of all these companies that we enjoy? Are they innovating, or are they iterating? That's the question. That's the question. Some of these people innovate. Some people can only iterate, and they can't innovate. But people will say, a bunch of America's billion-dollar startups have an immigrant founder, but all the people they're talking about in these cases are Jews or Europeans or East Asians. Again, isolated examples from particular groups of people, not exactly the same as South Asians and Latin Americans and Africans. And India, by the way, doesn't even want these people. They're not like kicking themselves when we take them into our country, like, damn, so mad. Stop it. Stop taking all of our merit. No, that's not happening. Sir, my friend, please stop taking our merit. That doesn't happen. But we have to make sure that we continue to do that. Because you notice, too, the whole H-1B debate has put the Indian government, average experience recording outside of a historical black college and university. Excuse me. That's what happens when you wait too long. You wait too long to make your hotel reservations. You end up having to get an Airbnb, and then the only Airbnb that's available for under like $3,000 is one that's within a few blocks of Howard University. Joke's on them. I love hanging out at HBCUs, and so actually I'm getting a good deal on this. In any case, it's not as though the Indian government is kicking themselves. They're mad at us for getting away with this and we're tricking them. No, they're actually working to make sure that we continue to do this, that we continue to take their people into our country. Because you notice this whole H-1B debate literally put the Indian government on alert. The Indian government is now working with NASSCOM, which is this Indian IT outsourcing lobbying group, specifically to protect the H-1B visa program from any potential impacts now that Donald Trump is king of the world again. Okay. So you might want to ask yourself, if a foreign government thinks it's worth their time to ensure that their people continue to come over here to immigrate to America, work by the hundreds of thousands for remittances, nationalist ethnic beachheads, etc., it's worth asking whether America is actually benefiting from that arrangement. More importantly, whether it means a loss of sovereignty for Americans, which of course it obviously does. I mean, look at who we're competing with on the world stage. Look at China. Look at Russia. World wars, communist genocides, famines, inflation, degeneration, and they're still standing. They're still themselves. Those are things that are certainly, unhealthy for nations, but they're not death sentences. Historically, there are two things which societies cannot recover from, and those are the sexual emancipation of women and demographic replacement. We are halfway there. We've already got one genie that we got to put back in the bottle. We've got our plate full. We've got our hands full. We got tough competition. China, it's kind of scary. How many foreign workers is China taking in? Do they know something that we don't, or do we know something that they don't? Did they not get the game guide? If it's such an obvious benefit, why is no one else following suit? Why are these other countries not mass importing Indian workers? It's because we're not getting the people who designed India's nuclear bombs. They're doing just fine. They're in India. We get the H-1B workers, which are essentially like indentured servants. So the current system literally selects for liars and cheaters, and just increasing that number is only going to reward that behavior, like increasing the caps that we have every year. So the whole thing's rotten to the core. And it's only going to be reformed insofar as that's defined as a series of deliberate abolitions. It's never done its stated purpose. It's only contributed to the suffocation of real merit at the expense of course, Americans, and for the benefit of people who hate Americans or want to take advantage of Americans. What's the difference? Including, of course, foreign mafias. Here's one. In 2022 and 2023, over 3/4 of H-1Bs went to countries with average IQs below 80. And we're expected to believe this is just all about the best and the brightest. And really, why is it that over 70% of H-1Bs go to Indians every year? The next highest figure is China, at 12%. This is an ethnic mafia. It's nepotism. There is no other explanation. Remember Cognizant? That giant outsourcing firm we went over a little bit earlier with the Twitter thread, they received 52,000 H-1B visas since 2009, more than any other American company, and almost all of them went to Indians. And in October, a federal jury actually ruled that the company had intentionally discriminated against more than 2,000 non-Indian employees between 2013 and 2022, which of course they did. And all of this squares very nicely with the fact that every hiring suit against Indians is always successful because Indians literally only only hire other Indians. Everybody knows this. You know, we said this in the last video that we were going to talk about the fake credentials, the cheating mafias, all that stuff. I'll let you in on the dirty little secret. When an American institution vouches for somebody, that's quite often worth a lot more than when a foreign institution vouches for somebody, so that they can get into an American university, America, establish and expand their ethnic beachhead within the country, within its institutions. For example, it's an open secret that Chinese students in Western universities, they basically get like rubber stamped passes despite the fact that they often have subpar performance, they cheat, they often lack language comprehension, they even spy, because universities are able to charge them something like 10 times as much for tuition. Moreover, I don't know if you've ever had any experience with these kinds of people, but can we just like speak honestly for a moment? I don't know how you could have a series of interactions with the kinds of people who come to this country to participate in the Western academic tradition and conclude anything but that they're just like these AstroTurf cheaters. I mean, they have no insight, they have no original knowledge, they just stare. There's nothing behind their eyes. They just stare, but they're intelligent. They can navigate a system, they can maybe understand a system. It's something else. It's like an ability to think outside the box, to innovate rather than iterate. You know, it's a certain intellectual curiosity that these people just don't have. But, you know, it's good real estate dollars. It's whatever. We need to talk more about the Chinese at some point. I know it's like a boomer, like Mochai comes, but there is a proper and necessary way to go about it. But it's just common knowledge. I mean, they have these ethnic cheating mafias in every grad school in the U.S. where they share tests among themselves. And with lower year students, they use these Chinese websites that have like PDF versions of the textbooks with all of the, you know, answers included in them and everything. I heard a story not too long ago. There was an econ professor who developed an algorithm because he was trying to catch people who are cheating in a PhD program or something. And he caught, of course, a ring of Chinese students who were cheating and copying answers. Like, it's all fake, dude. It's all fake. They're just strivers. Simple as that. Cutting corners. It's the rise of the ethnic striver. It's a very particular phenomenon. We have to discuss that in its own video, but it's a very unique happening that we're seeing in the West. And it's so annoying, and it's so fake, and it's so gay. And there's so much to consider with that. And then these people become talking heads, and they tell you that you're a dumb American. And if you want to become successful and you want to wear suits like me and walk around and wear suits and shake hands, you have to accept more immigrants, dummy. But then you look at how they actually made their money, and it's pyramid schemes and rug pulls. And it's all fake. It's all fake. There's no value-added product, but it all blows up in their faces every time. You notice, not to segue, this is completely irrelevant. And I'm not pointing fingers, I'm not naming names, I'm just a nice guy. But you notice, Vivek Ramaswamy has been absent, and in fact, I just heard today that he will officially not be involved in the Department of Government Efficiency. He's not going to be involved in DOGE in the wake of this debate and his embarrassing diagnosis that America is falling behind because we focus too much on sports and TV as opposed to celebrating merit. And this is why American culture is bad, and it needs to be enriched by, you know, the rest of the world. So it looks like he'll be running for governor of Ohio or something, I think. I don't know. Trump saw the storm that he created and said, "You're fired." Trump saw my video and said, "This ends now." And people are trying to use this whole thing to attack Donald Trump, which is what their overriding ambition is anyway. You know, they just want to attack Trump. And so they'll justify it, of course, in any way that they can. But the truth is that Trump has been right on this issue from the beginning. He denigrated the program when he was first running in 2016. The book that radicalized him, the book that shaped his entire campaign in 2016, Adios America, has like a whole chapter just on the H1B visa program. So he clearly understands what's going on. And he'll say something like, "Oh, you know, we want people to come in." Trump just says things off the cuff. He said the same thing in 2016, a big, beautiful door on the wall. We signed off on that. Then you look at what he actually does, and it's good for us. He cut legal immigration in half. He goes after these programs that are meant to displace American workers. So it's like, who cares about what he says? Like, twice, by the way. What he does is good. Is that not what matters? And then people call that coping. Brother, I am explaining something to you. Wouldn't it be coping to just like invent things that aren't true and then screech about it when anyone replies? Like, would that not be the cope? You're already seething. You're already seething. You may as well cope too. Trump told RFK he's not touching energy policy. Vivek is not going to touch immigration policy. I don't even know the extent to which he's going to even be involved in the administration at this point. So just relax. Just relax. Trust the plan. Would it kill you to trust the plan for 5 seconds? We are in the driver's seat, okay? People can hop on or they can get left behind. And as it concerns the tech bros, obviously an important part of this equation, they may be retreating, They may be fortifying. They may be gradually coming along on the issue. I don't know if they want to fully get into this fight with us and lose, which they would. And I'd like for them to continue, joining the cause. I want them to commit to it because if they actually want to hire the best and brightest, that would mean joining us and attacking the real problem, which is the civil rights regime, which literally makes it illegal to hire the best and the brightest. And you can work around that by doing what they've been doing and importing Indians and Chinamen and other foreigners to fill these roles since they're not white. And again, it is literally illegal to hire too many white men. And even where it's not like nominally illegal, they'll still target you with regulatory civil investigations and they'll make your life hell and they'll drag you through the media, which is exactly what they did to Elon Musk. So you may as well just commit to the bit. You may as well commit to the fight. You may as well commit to the fight. Like the choice to support Trump wasn't really a choice per se. I mean, you didn't really have a choice. It was about taking the knife away from your throat that the Brandon Harris regime was imposing. You wanted an out, that's fine, but it's not like you have a real leverage to work with. I mean, especially if that goal is something which is so obviously incompatible with everything that Trump's political project is about. Like if Kamala had won, they'd be further strangled just as they have been for the past few decades. And they knew that. So that was the choice for supporting Trump. And if you want cheap labor and you're too scared to put a target on your back, like, okay, you can just say that. But don't lie. Don't lie. Because if you really wanted to unleash American ingenuity and innovation, you'd know that we have to do something about these laws that privilege certain races, certain sexual behaviors or proclivities, religions, and one gender over the other. And this is the real thing that nobody wants to touch, but the time for not doing that is running out. We are approaching critical mass. Again, these debates are unavoidable. These battles are inexorable. One side is going to win, and it has to be us. We're not going back into the box. I'm like the prospector. I am an awakened patriot. I'm an alert patriot. I'm not going back into storage. It's just not going to happen. And it starts literally today. By the time you watch this, America will be great again. We're officially back in Trump's America. I think he just pardoned the J6 people. They're getting let out of prison. So now it's the time to fight, fight, fight. Never quit. We must restore our dreams. We must dream big again. We must make our country great again. And you can start by going to johndoyleshop.com because the merch is back and it's live and it's time to celebrate total patriot victory. We'll see you there.
Donald Trump built a wall. Donald Trump for us all. Donald Trump make America great again, make it great for us all. If you wanna come, you gotta come legally. If you wanna come, you gotta come legally. Hillary is such a bitch. Bernie Sanders is a bitch. I don't really give a shit. If it ain't Trump, then I ain't with it. Dollar signs, Donald Trump. Hey, dollar signs, Donald Trump. Donald Trump coming in for the illegals. He's gonna kick them out, they costing us all this money. All this money that we ain't got for illegals. 80 billion, what the fuck is that illegals? Make America great again. Make it great again. Make America great again. Make it great again.